begin using your AutoBatch version 3.0 system, the system needs to be set up. This is typically done prior to start of the season. Some of the parameters, if you've been operating your season for multiple seasons, the settings will remain from year to year. But we're going to go back over each one of those just to review what they are and also instruct in how to set up the system. To begin setting up the system, you first need to navigate on your main navigation bar, which is the top bar on your touch screen. You navigate to the Setup menu. As you can see my mouse, I'm going to go over to the Setup menu and touch Setup menu. You will see the green highlight. Now move underneath the Setup menu button. You'll also see a different sub-navigation menu with 4 buttons. I'm going to touch System Setup. That shows System Setup screen. We touch AutoBatch Setup. That goes into our AutoBatch Setup screen. And these are the parameters that you will need to make sure are set correctly prior to starting your running orders from your system on a season-by-season basis. I'm going to talk about the screen in sections. The first section I want to talk about is what you'll see on the left-hand side of your touchscreen. This is where you as an operator would select the mode that you want to define orders by. With an AutoBatch version 3 system, you have the opportunity to set your system to define orders in 3 different methods. One is defining an order by pounds, in which you would set an order, for example, of 2,500 pounds. The second is setting it by units defined by pounds. So for example, a unit would be defined as 50 pounds, and when you enter a number of units in your system order screen, it would take that number of units times that 50-pound unit definition. The final way you can set up your system is to run orders on a seed count unit basis. So for example, you would define a unit by 140,000 seeds, and you would also be required to input your seed size information of 2,200 seeds per pound, 2,800 seeds per pound, 3,200 seeds per pound, for example. And then when you enter the number of units you're asking the system to deliver to your scale, the system automatically calculates the weight of that order by taking units times the 140,000 seed count times your seed size to get the accurate pounds to deliver to the scale. To select a different mode here, we simply touch on one of the red buttons. You will see the green highlight move from the bottom red button to this top one, which I just touched. In this top mode is selecting to run seed on a pounds basis. Again, you define an order such as 2,500 pounds in your order entry screen. You also are able to set the minimum order amount in pounds. Here we have it set for 100 pounds, so as an operator you wouldn't be able to call for an order less than 100 pounds. Second mode is your units defined by pounds. You can change your unit size from 50 pounds to something else. As we touch the yellow box, which in our AutoBatch and AutoTreat systems, when you touch one of the text entry boxes on the AutoBatch version 3 and AutoTreat version 3 systems, those boxes are yellow. You touch that box and you can, and a numeric entry screen will pop up. At this point, we can change the unit size from 50 pounds to something else. I'm going to change it to 44 pounds by touching the numbers 4. I touch Enter, and the field will update as you see. I'm going to go ahead and change that back to 50 pounds for the purposes of our training today. Also, we can set the minimum order amount in number of units. Right here it's set on 0 units. The bottom box is where most systems are probably going to be set at this point in time. In defining your order units by seed count, here again we can change our unit size from 140,000 to something smaller or larger by simply touching the yellow button and keying in a numeric entry. I will cancel out there and leave it set at 140,000 seeds per unit. I also have a minimum order amount of 5 units, so I couldn't order anything less than 5 units in this case. Before I move on to the next screen, I'm going to go ahead and select the amount equals unit defined by count. You'll see that that button is now highlighted, so the system is set to accept entries of units. When we set up an order, we'll select our order amount defined by units, and it will automatically calculate how many pounds is required to meet that number of units defined by 140,000 seeds per unit. We'll move on to the center column. The center column contains multiple auto batch system parameters. I'm going to walk through each one and define each one for you briefly. The first one on the top of the column is the order complete tolerance in pounds. This is set at 75 pounds currently. Again, can be changed by touching on the yellow area on your touch screen and keying in a numeric entry. The definition of this parameter is most often comes to light if, for example, you're running a seed order in the middle of the season and your seed source runs out. For example, you're running out of your first bin in your system and there isn't enough seed in that bin to complete that order. Let's say you're asking for 2,500 pounds and the system is only able to deliver 2,450 pounds, and then there's no more seed entering your scale. In that particular example, you're 50 pounds short of a full order. However, the system will allow the order to complete because you're within that 75-pound tolerance. Factory setting is 75 pounds. It can be changed just simply by going into the screen. Would recommend leaving it at 7,500 pounds, and typically this doesn't come into play except in the case and scenario I described. The next box is your scale batch capacity. This is system specific. Refers to the size of the scale hopper that you have in your system. KSI provides hopper sizes anywhere from approximately 150 units up to 375 units. There's also scales in some systems that go higher than that number. The scale batch capacity is where we define how much the system will allow, how much seed the system will allow to be placed on the scale before cycling through to the next order or stopping the scale fill cycle in an order on an order by order basis. This prevents you as an operator from overfilling your scale. It's a safety measure. So, for example, if the scale weight reaches 12,500 pounds, as this setting indicates, and there's still more seed required to complete that order, the system will stop, go ahead and require the operator to run that seed out of the scale either through the treater or into his customer's box or tender or wagon or whatever the customer has brought to pick up seed, and then it will run the remainder of that order, whatever amount that is. Let's say, for example, 20,000 pounds, still required 7,500 pounds on the scale. It'll go ahead and run another 7,500 pounds into the scale to complete the order. This again keeps you from overfilling your scale, from overfilling it to the point where seed runs over the side or a conveyor becomes plugged and shuts down. The next field is your scale empty tolerance. It's set at 5 pounds, as you see on your screen. This parameter refers to the amount of seed or the weight of seed, the weight that can be shown on the scale before the system considers it empty. All our scales in AutoBatch version 3 are set up at 5-pound increments. That's the finest resolution they're capable of measuring is 5 pounds. So, for example, if a scale for some reason is affected in such a way that there's still 3 pounds shown or 3 pounds measured on the scale, the system will consider the scale empty at that point. If it's above 5 pounds, the system will assume that there's still seed on the scale and there's some action needs to be taken by the operator, such as opening the air gate to allow the scale to empty, or checking the scale to see if there's any interference with the load cell or load cells on the scale. The next parameter is the scale empty time. It's set at 5 seconds. This is related to the scale empty tolerance. I'll define that as the scale needs to be at 5 pounds or less for a period of 5 seconds before the system will consider that scale empty. The next box is the clean out fill conveyors for time. This is a timer that runs once feed has been stopped by the system from being delivered to the scale. So for example, an order will require 2,500 pounds on the scale. That amount is delivered to the scale, and the seed source is shut. The air gate is shut at the seed source, and the conveyors will continue to run for this amount of time, whatever the operator sets this timer at, to allow all seed to be cleaned out and delivered to the scale. Prevents seed from being somewhere in your system where you're not aware, and keeps conveyors cleaned out on after seed is no longer being delivered to the scale. That parameter is operator adjustable. If you feel like you need more time to clean your conveyors out before the next step in the order cycle is instigated, that parameter can be increased in time or decreased in time, whatever the case may be. Fill conveyors off delay time. This is simply a way to add a few more seconds onto the timer above. It'll keep the conveyors from turning off for an additional time. Typically, in most systems, it's set at 0 seconds. There are a few systems that this parameter is required for, so that's why it is available to you. But typically, it's set at 0 seconds, and simply the time that the conveyors clean out for is adjusted with the parameter above it, the clean out fill conveyors for time parameter. The next parameter, the slow scale alarm time, in this example is set at 350 seconds. What this defines for the system is how long the system will allow the conveyors to operate to try to fill the scale to whatever the required weight is. So for example, the system is asking for 5,000 pounds on the scale. If it takes longer than 350 seconds to achieve 5,000 pounds of seed in your scale, the system will alarm and go into a shutdown cycle. This comes into play, for example, like the example I described previously. If a bin runs out of seed in the middle of a season and the operator has set an order to run and has walked away while the system is filling, while the scale is filling, to do something else, such as communicate with a customer, to move a box with a forklift or something like that, the scale of the system will not continue to run indefinitely. It will alarm and stop after whatever this time parameter is set at, and as we said, in this case, it's 350 seconds. This parameter can be adjusted and should be adjusted for different configurations of systems. For example, smaller under bins, shorter under bins, under maybe 2 to 3 bins, this parameter can be set at a lower time. For some of our systems that users have 8 to 12 bins, this parameter can be increased to compensate for the additional time that it will take to deliver seed from some of the bins that are farther away and require more time to get seed to the scale. The next parameter is the motor fault time. It is set at 3 seconds. This is again a factory setting. This can be adjusted up and down depending on the needs of the system. What this parameter refers to is the amount of time the system will wait to receive a running signal from a motor that it is asked to start. So for example, if your scale fill conveyor has been given a start signal by the system and the system doesn't receive a running signal back from that motor within 3 seconds, the system will fault and shut down. This prevents delivering seed to a belt that is not operating because the motor didn't turn on for some reason, and is again a safety measure that can be adjusted depending on the needs of your system. The next parameter, air pressure fault time, is set at 10 seconds. Each of your systems, or each system that we have automation on, or uses compressed air to operate air gates. That compressed air has a low pressure limit that is required to operate the air gates, and that is set at the air manifold that we have provided to you with your system. If the pressure falls below that minimum pressure required, for a period of 10 seconds, the system will go into a fault mode and shut down and indicate to the operator by messages on your main screen, as well as flashing the alarm light that there is a problem with the system that requires the operator's attention. Again, it's a safety measure, allows for dips in pressure, but if pressure, for some reason lose air pressure and that falls below that minimum setting for 10 seconds, the system goes into default mode. The final parameter is your treater inlet high level off delay. This is set at 1 second. This is again a timer that controls operation of conveyors in your system. This is used in systems that are unstacked, or another way to define that is the scale is feeding a conveyor that feeds a treater in your system. It doesn't refer to a system that the scale would feed directly into the treater, for example, where the scale is stacked over the top of a treating system. In unstacked systems, in the hopper that receives seed from the conveyor, the hopper that receives seed over the treater from a conveyor, there's a high-level sensor. This high-level sensor, when met or when activated by seed filling up above to that level, will send a signal to our system that then causes the conveyor feeding that treater to shut off so you don't overfill that small hopper above your treater. The high-level off delay comes into play. The 1 second timer comes into play when seed begins to be treated by the treater and the level in that hopper is reduced to a point where that it no longer activates the high-level sensor. Once that high-level sensor is no longer activated, the conveyor would be allowed to turn back on. However, this high-level off delay keeps the conveyor from turning on for an additional period of time, in this case 1 second. This allows the conveyor to not turn on and off as frequently as would happen otherwise, and this prolongs the life of motors. Again, it's a safety measure. As you know, turning a motor on and off can be hard on a motor, or harder on a motor, so this prolongs the life of a motor by allowing the motor to not turn on as frequently and then stay on for a longer period of time by requiring more seed to be delivered to the hopper for the high level before the high level will shut the conveyor off again. That takes care of our center column. As we move over to the column on the right of your screen, these parameters are all set at 0 seconds. These are parameters that were used in some of our early underbins, used in some of our early overbin fill systems or bin fill systems. Those parameters all can be set at 0 seconds, and those are factory settings. Those are settings you don't need to worry about in your system, as you will not use them unless instructed to do so by a KSI automation technician. At this point, we've taken care of examining and setting up all our auto batch setup parameters. We're ready to move on to set up our seed sources, which is the next step required before we're able to run seed out of our system. And to get to that screen, we need to navigate back on the main menu, main navigation menu, to our system menu. So we'll touch our system menu button. That brings up another subset of menus: bin fill, bin 1 through 4, bin 5 through 8, 9 through 12, scale, treater, loadout, and order buttons. We're going to touch our bin 1 through 4 button, which brings up our first 4 bins or first 4 seed sources in our system. This procedure is typically done when seed is received into your system. This can be done in the fall when you receive your seed into your bins, winter if that happens in that time, or during the season when you refill your bins during your seed season. To get to the setup screen, we'll go to whatever bin we want to set up and touch the setup button. There's a setup button on each one of your seed sources or your seed bins. We'll touch setup, and you'll see a security code numeric entry box pop up. The security code is in place for a couple of reasons. It allows you as an operator to prevent unauthorized users from going in and changing parameters that that can cause problems with your system if they're changed, and also allows you as an operator to have a double check. Do I actually want to go ahead and modify the parameters that are behind the security code? In the KSI system, that number is 777. It's standard on all our systems. It can be changed by a KSI automation technician if you so request, but the standard code is 777. So again, once the security code box has popped up, we touch 777. We touch enter, and the bin setup parameters pop-up will be displayed. I'm going to touch that and drag it across my screen. This can be done by touching up in the blue area on top of the box and simply dragging it to another area of the screen. I want to be able to see my seed source that I'm setting up as well as operate in the setup parameters pop-up box. I'll talk about a couple different areas on this screen and talk about the different parameters before we move on. Want to also make note of on your system, whenever you see a box that has an I in it, that's an information screen. If we touch on that button, we'll have a box pop up and show us what that particular parameter is used for. As you see, a pop-up box comes up and describes the bin seed ID description, and that will give you information as far as what that refers to or what that parameter does for you in your system. To navigate away from that, we simply touch the OK button. The box will disappear. The first parameter to talk about in this area and setting up your seed sources or setting up your bin is the bin seed ID. That's the first box. Again, if we touch on the yellow box, we'll have a text entry box pop up. I'm going to go ahead and rename this seed ID on this bin to variety space 55. I'm going to touch enter, and you'll see the text box update to variety 55 for the bin 1 seed ID, and we also show that on the bin graphic over here on the right of your screen. Very critical that you note what you've named each one of your bins or each one of your seed sources, as when we get to the point of running an order, the variety of seed that you ask for on an order needs to exactly match, or the name, it needs to exactly match whatever you've named your seed source on this screen and in this area. That we want to visit about here in our trading is our bin seed lot ID box. This is another parameter that the system allows you as an operator to define on a seed source by seed source or bin by bin basis. This comes into play, for example, if you as an operator or you as a user have two seed sources with the same variety. So if my bin 2 would be set up as variety 55 as well, but they have different lot numbers, it's a way to differentiate between the two seed sources. If I touch on that, I'm going to describe this as LOT 345. So lot 345, I'll touch enter. And again, this information will be printed on each of your tickets that you print on an order-by-order basis and give to your customers. The next parameter is your bin seeds per pound. We have it set at 2,800 seeds per pound right now. I'm going to touch that button and change it to 3,200 for smaller seed. This information is typically available to you on your seed tickets when you receive seed from your production plants in the fall or in the winter. You see that's updated in the seeds per pound. This comes into play specifically when in auto batch when running orders on a seed count unit basis. So this parameter is very critical if you're going to define your orders on 140,000 seeds per unit. I'm going to touch on that and change that back to 2,800 for purposes of this demonstration. The next two boxes, the bin fill amount and the bin capacity, are both defined in pounds. You'll see a green graphic on each one of your seed sources, on each of the bins. These numbers impact what that graphic shows, and as well as what the bin fill amount shows on your bin graphic over here on the right-hand side of your screen. Bin fill amount is set right now at 200,000 pounds, and it matches the bin capacity. Depending on what size of bin you have, I'm going to go in and change this bin to 250,000 pounds. We'll say it's a larger bin than we had defined before. As we hit enter, you see that number change on your setup parameters pop-up box, but also you'll see the green graphic that indicates the bin fill amount change as well. That's because we only have indicated to our system that there's 200,000 pounds of seed in our bin. This is a number that you'll get from your seed ticket that's delivered to you when seed is delivered to you from the production plant. If I touch on that, I'm going to go ahead and change that to 250,000 pounds to indicate that I have a full bin. I touch enter, and that impacts the bin fill amount number on the bin graphic as well as the green level graphic that is shown on each one of your seed sources. When you as an operator deliver seed out of one of your seed sources or out of one of your bins, this number automatically is decreased by the amount that the scale weighs. So if you run an order of 10,000 pounds, the scale will, and the scale ticket prints at 10,000 pounds. Once you print the ticket in your system, the bin fill amount will automatically be decreased by 240 pounds to 240,000 instead of 250,000, and you'll begin to see that level also indicated on the green bin graphic. This is useful in keeping track of inventory. Obviously, given the amount of seed in your bin and the number of orders you run over the course of the season and the potential to not have exactly the same amount of seed in your bin as what your ticket said when you receive beans into your bin in the fall or the winter, that may not be completely accurate, but it does give you a rough indication of how much seed you have left in each one of your seed sources or your seed bins. Another point I'll make at this time is that KSI has made available to its customers via our website a download of a capacity chart that converts the size of the bin that you have, tells you how many units and 140,000 seeds per unit based on different seed sizes. Tells you how many units each one of your bins can hold. So that may be a resource that you may be interested in going to our website to find and download. Two other parameters I'll talk about before we navigate away from the screen are the bottom two parameters on your bin setup parameters pop-up. It's the bin 1 pre-act in pounds and the bin 1 discharge rate in pounds per second. These two numbers will be set when we come back and run an auto-set procedure in the next section of our training. The last parameter I'll refer to before we navigate away is the bin seed wheel calibration in grams. In auto batch systems, this parameter is not used. It's only required in systems where KSI Automation is controlling the treating device or the seed treater that is used in the system. In an auto batch system, it is not required. I'm going to click on it and set that to 0 since it's not needed. Touch enter. It updates it to 0. At this point, I'm ready to exit out of the system. I'll touch the exit button. The bin setup parameters box goes away, and I'm ready to go on to our third area of setting up our system, which is our customer setup screen. The customer setup tool is accessed by touching our data menu. Our data menu is now highlighted, and we can see several sub-menus that we're able to, or sub-screens that we're able to navigate to from this menu. We're going to go into our Manage Customers screen by touching the Manage Customers button, and this brings up our customer information tool. AutoBatch version 3 systems are capable of storing up to 200 customers in their system memory. Couple points about this screen. There's several fields available to you. You can define a customer by operation and account, by address, city, and state, zip, and phone number. This information that you put in here will be printed on a customer's ticket if you select that customer when you're setting up the order. This customer database can be accessed from your order entry screen, and we'll get to that part in a later section of our training today. You can navigate in this screen by touching the up and down arrows down here on the bottom of our screen. If we touch down, you'll see the screen numbers, the field numbers change over here on the left-hand side of your screen. If I touch up, we navigate up by 10 fields or 10 customers. I go ahead and go up to the top of our list, and you'll see some information that's already been input into this system. We have 7 customers already input. You'll see that the 7th customer, we don't have very much information for him. I'm going to go ahead and edit some of his here. I can do that by touching on the specific field. Let's say I want to edit his account name, so I touch on that. I'm going to call him Smith. Notice I accidentally hit a Y instead of a T. I can correct that by backspacing. Call him Smith Farms. Touch enter, and you see the information updated on the 7th customer in our list. A couple notes also about this tool. You're not able to sort these customers by alphabetically or any of the other fields. Whatever field that you enter a customer in, that is the field that he will be in. You can access that customer from your order entry screen by selecting what customer number he is. In this case, it would be number 7, or you can search by the customer name, either account or operation name, once you're at that order entry screen. I want to talk about a couple different ways to use the operation and the account name. As you see, I've defined the operation as Joe Smith and the account as Smith Farms. You may have several different accounts for each of Joe Smith's operation. For example, if I want to set up customer number 8 as well as Joe Smith, touch enter. But in this case, Joe Smith has a rental property and he wants to bill seed differently to his rental operation. So if I touch enter there, I can deliver seed to Joe Smith, who may be the same customer, but this is, for example, would be his own operation, and this would be an operation that he shares expenses with a landowner or landlord. Before I navigate away from the screen, either by navigating up or down or by exiting from the screen, I want to make sure I save my changes each time. When I do that, I want to touch my Save Changes button. You see the button change on your screen just real briefly. Once I've saved those changes, then I can navigate away from the screen and be sure that my information is going to be saved and be accessible when I navigate back here or when I access it from my order entry screen. The final area we're going to talk about this morning today before we move on to running an auto set is setting up our seed sources on our order page. To get to our order page, I want to navigate back to our system menu. And you see the green highlight under the system menu button. It brings up my submenus where I can select my order screen. Over on the right-hand side of your submenu bar, I touch the order button, and my order entry screen pops up. It's from this place that I can set up an order to run from my system. And to finish the setup of our system, we need to make sure that we have named our seed sources in our quick load menu in the same manner that we named our seed source back on our bin and seed source setup screen that we started out with today. I'll touch my quick load button and you'll see a screen pop up that allows us to edit each one of our seed sources. Again, I will stress that the name that we enter into each one of these boxes needs to exactly match whatever we named that seed source or that bin back on our bin page that we started out with today. I'm going to talk about a couple features of the screen before we edit that first box, that variety, the bin 1. We need to name it variety 55. If we look down on the lower right-hand corner of our screen, we'll see a little down arrow, and we'll see a small menu here where we can do different functions or select different functions on the screen. If I touch the down arrow, you'll see that little pop-up disappear. If you navigate to the screen and you don't see that box, you'll come to the lower right-hand corner of your screen and touch the up arrow, and that screen appears for you. You'll also see a load button that's inactivated, an edit button that's black. If the edit button is black, that prevents you as an operator from editing any of these fields. If I try to click or touch on that box, nothing happens. It simply changes the active bin from one bin to the other. If I want to actually edit the name, I need to touch the edit button. You'll see it change color to a lighter color, a light gray color. If we're in edit mode now on this screen, I can go and touch the variety X, and you'll see a text entry button pop up, or text entry box pop up. Due to how we're displaying the screens today, the text entry box on this particular tool is difficult to be seen over the training video. However, if you are operating on your screen, you will see a text entry box that you can actually edit. Touch it again, you see the box pop up. I'm going to go ahead and type in variety 55 on this screen. You may not see this, see any text show up in this field that I'm running my mouse over right now. However, if you're operating it on your screen, you will see that text. I type in variety, space 55, touch enter, and you'll see the field updated up at the top of your screen to now show variety 55. Once I've entered and finished updating the names on this screen, and again, this is typically done at the beginning of your season, and can be done at the same time as you set up your bins. I can go down to the bottom left of my screen and touch the close button. That takes me back to my order entry screen. The next step in preparing your version 3 auto batch system to run orders is to run an auto set for each of your seed sources or each of your bins. To execute this procedure, we need to navigate to our system menu. As you see, the system menu submenu is highlighted. We will go to our bin 1 through 4, and we're going to run an auto set on our bin 1 in this system. Once again, I'll touch setup, enter my security code of 777, press enter, and our bin 1 setup parameters box appears again for us on the screen. I'm going to drag this to the left of the screen so we're able to see what happens with our air gate on the bottom of the bin, which is labeled KG101, and our motor, which is labeled M100. I want to talk very briefly about the Auto Batch version 3 system and how our motors are named and how the different devices in the system are named and how they're operated. As you'll see in M100 here, that refers to motor 100. This motor 100 is labeled in your electrical panel. The motor starter or the variable frequency drive that starts this device is labeled in your electrical panel as M100. It's also labeled on your electrical schematic provided to you by KSI as M100. KG refers to knife gate 101. I'm going to touch on the M100 button. It pops up a hand-off auto screen where I can set the motor to run in forward, run in reverse. I can set it to off, or I can set it into auto mode. Forward means the motor is going to manually run forward. Reverse means the motor is going to manually run in reverse. Off means the motor is set to off and the system cannot automatically start that motor. And auto means that the system has control over that motor or device. So if I have it set to auto, the system is able to start it, stop it, run it in reverse, run it forward as needed or required by the system. If the motor goes into fault, you'll see it flashing red, and the box that is green around the M100 box button will be flashing red. To reset that, we would need to press the reset button, and to navigate away from the screen, we would touch exit. As you see, the motor is off right now. I'm going to touch the M100 button and set it to run in the forward direction. You'll see green arrows indicating the direction the conveyor belt is running. You'll see a green button up here at the head of the conveyor indicating the motor is running and operating. You'll see the box around it change colors. That color indicates the motor is running in manual mode. If I touch the off button and set the motor to off, you'll see all the green lights go away and the motor is indicated off by the red box around it. That's a visual indication to you that your motor won't be able to be started automatically by the system. As I set the motor to auto, you will see then that the box around the button turns green. That means the system is able to start and stop the motor as required by the order sequence. I'll touch exit and exit out of that screen. Also show you the knife gate operation screen. A little simpler. We can simply open it, close it, or set it to auto. I'm not going to open it or close it in this case. You'll see that here in a few minutes when we run the auto set procedure on our bin 1. I'll touch exit, exit out of that screen. I'm ready to run our auto set procedure. Pre-act means pre-action. It defines for the system the point or the trigger to take a pre-action before an event is actually required. That's a rather complex explanation to something that can be simplified down to the pre-act defines the amount of seed that is on your belt between your seed source gate and your scaling system in your KSI automation system. The pre-act allows a user to be very accurate in their orders. It's what allows your orders to be within plus or minus 5 pounds of what you're requesting on your scale. Before you run the pre-act, you need to go physically out to your bin or your seed source and open your manual gate on your bin. This is your gate that is operated with it's the roller gate that's operated by turning your crank handle on each one of your bins. Before running your pre-act, you need to open your bin gates and set them to the KSI recommended distance open. Typically, this is 4 to 6 inches in a system. When we finish with the auto set procedure, we're going to be targeting a bin discharge rate of anywhere from 20 to 50 pounds per second down here in the bottom parameter box. If we can achieve that depending on the configuration of your system, depending on the size and capacity of conveyors that you have in your system, that's the target range we want to be in. If you're below 20 pounds, you're probably not maximizing the efficiency of your system. If you're above 50 pounds, you may be in danger of overloading conveyors and plugging conveyors in your system, which can cause you problems in operation. I'll talk a little bit about the pre-act procedure. When we start the pre-act procedure start the auto set procedure, we're going to touch Run Auto Set down on the bottom left-hand corner of your Setup Parameters pop-up box. That's going to bring up a new window that's going to have quite a bit of information on it. The actual procedure will take place as follows. The system will start the conveyors. Once the conveyors are running, it will open the ear gate or the knife gate under the seed source that we're setting. It will allow seed to discharge until the scale reaches a reading of 500 pounds. At that point, the knife gate will close and the conveyors will go through a 60-second clean-out cycle to make sure all seed is off the conveyors and into your scaling system. Once that clean-out cycle is complete, the system will calculate the amount of seed that's actually on the scale and differentiate that to the 500-pound target. That will be the preliminary pre-act number. The system will then open the knife gate again and attempt to accurately deliver 2,500 pounds of seed to the system scale. This means that whatever that preliminary pre-act is, it will shut the knife gate that amount of seed before the scale reaches 2,500 pounds. We'll talk through this as the procedure is running. What we have set up for a demonstration here today is a scale simulator. So you will see the scale number increase on the window that will pop up when we begin running the auto set procedure. We're simulating that weight on the scale, so in actuality, this may take more time or less time for your system depending on how it's configured than what you see here today. Okay, we're ready to start the auto set procedure. I'm going to touch the auto set button. Once I touch it, you see the security code box pop up on your screen. Once again, we need to touch 777. Once I press enter, the auto set procedure is going to start. You will see the conveyor turn on, and after the conveyor has been on for the required time, the knife gate will open. At that point, we will begin increasing in simulation mode the weight of seed on our scale. So I touch enter, and the auto set monitor box pops up. You see the conveyor is turned on, and the knife gate is now green, indicating that it is open. You see the auto set is running, flashing green. You'll see it flash green on your screen, and we are beginning to increment the scale up to something above 500 pounds. You see where my cursor is indicated at 455 pounds. Once it hits 500 pounds, you'll see the knife gate close as it has now in the system. And there's a timer up in this light box up at the top of your auto set monitor pop-up where you see a timer incrementing, presently at 16 seconds, 18 seconds. This will run for 60 seconds, allowing the conveyor to completely clean out of any seed that may still be on it. The scale actual weight right now, once the conveyors have delivered all the seed into the scale, is 805 pounds. That means that our first run pre-act number will show 305 pounds. You'll see the first run gate time. It took 22.8 seconds to achieve that 805 pounds. Dividing the scale weight with the time will give us a rate in pounds per second. You will see both those numbers populate here as soon as our timer hits 60 seconds, which it has now. And we're now filling the scale again, targeting 2,500 pounds on the scale. You'll see our first run pre-act was 305 pounds at a rate of 35 pounds per second. The scale is increasing in weight, targeting 2,500 pounds. So with a 305-pound first run pre-act, you'll see the knife gate shut at approximately 2,200 pounds. Scale weight's approaching 2,200. See, it's hit 2,200. The knife gate is shut. The cleanout timer is running. And the scale in your system will end up with 2,500 pounds of seed on the scale. Once the cleanout period is completed, which we still have approximately 30 seconds to achieve that, you'll see the final pre-act number and the final rate in pounds per second fields populate. Right now they're at 0 pounds. See here it took the second run. The gate was open for 42.4 seconds. That number will be used to determine the final rate in pounds per second. Cleanout time is nearing completion. Once it's completed, you'll see those numbers populate. The final pre-act is 305 pounds. So this means that each time you run seed out of that seed source, the gate at that seed source is going to shut and stop delivering seed to the conveyor system 305 pounds before you reach your target weight on your scale. The final rate per second is 37.6 pounds. Again, we said that range that you want to see that rate in to maximize efficiency of your system is anywhere between 20 and 50 pounds per second. At this point, your auto set is complete. That's indicated in the gray box up at the top of your auto set monitor. I'm going to touch Exit. It takes us back to our bin setup parameters pop-up, and you see that bin 1 pre-act is populated to 305 pounds. The discharge rate is populated to 37.7 or 6 pounds per second. Before we exit the screen and take time for questions, we want to talk about one more feature that an operator has available to him or her when operating this system. It's our auto adjust feature. As you can imagine, during the course of emptying seed from a bin over a season, flow rates can vary coming out of the bin. This can be impacted by several things, such as temperature, such as the fill amount in the bin. A fuller bin may run faster or slower than a bin that has had seed removed from it. This can affect the flow rate and by consequence affect the pre-act on your specific seed source. If we touch the auto adjust button and turn it on, which you'll see indicated when that auto adjust turns green, which I've touched it now, and you see it turn green on your screen. With auto adjust on, the system automatically monitors each and every order that is delivered from a specific seed source. If, for example, you're targeting 2,500 pounds for your order, and what is delivered is 2,510 pounds, the auto adjust feature being turned on will automatically adjust this pre-act to take into account that the seed may be flowing slightly faster out of the bin than it was before. By leaving this auto adjust on over the life of the bin, the system will continue to deliver accurate orders within plus or minus 5 pounds throughout the entire bin fill amount, whatever that is. Again, this auto set procedure needs to be run and auto adjust should be turned on each time you add seed to the bin or each time you change the opening on the manual gate on your seed bin. We'll go ahead and exit out of that pop-up, and at this point we're ready to go to the next step in our process. The next step in running an order from our Auto Batch version 3.0 system is to set up an order. To do this, from our home screen, we would navigate to our system menu. As you see, it's already selected by the green bar under the system menu button. We'll navigate to the order screen, which we've been to before, by touching the order button on the right-hand side of our system menu sub-screen menu. If you touch that, our order screen comes up. The first step in setting up an order is to set up the client information or the customer information. We can do this in two ways. The first way is to simply click on each one of the fields and enter a customer name in that box with the text entry screen. You see I put in the name customer, hit enter. That populates the field with the customer name. You can do this for the other fields below the customer name. You can also touch your quick load button. When you touch your quick load button, the customer search and select tool pops up. This is the location that you can access customer names that you have pre-entered in your customer data section of your system. A couple of comments about this tool. Again, we can scroll up and down by touching the up or the down arrow button. As I touch the down arrow button, you see the screen change to our customers 11 through 20. I'm going to select up and go back. You can also search by operation name or search by account name. You can do that by touching the box below those two buttons, typing in text and hitting enter, and then touching your search function button, either search by operation or search by account, and that will search the database or the customer database for that name that you've chosen to search for. Once you have the correct customer you want to deliver the order to, you simply touch insert. I'm going to insert the Hutchins Farms account. Once I've touched insert, I can touch exit, and we'll go back to our order entry screen, and you'll see that Hutchins Farms customer information is now populated into the client section of your order entry screen. Once again, this information is information that will print on your scale ticket at the completion of your order. The next step is to select your seed ID and amount. We can do this one of two ways again. We can do this by manually entering your seed source name into a text box, or we can do it with the quick load function that's available to you in the order entry screen. I touch quick load. You'll see a familiar screen to pop up. This is the order entry seed ID screen. To select one of your seed sources, and we've set up bin 1 already, as you recall from the previous section, we can touch the bin box, the bin 1 box. When we touch that, you see the bin 1 be highlighted by turning black. You'll also see down at the bottom of your lower right-hand side of your screen that the load button turns red. If I touch that bin again, or touch a different bin, that will deselect that bin and select a different bin. Again, if this box down on your lower right-hand side of your screen is not available, simply touch your up arrow button and it will appear. It's very critical to touch the bin 1 box and not over here in the variety section. If we touch in the variety section, you see that the load button goes away. We simply touch on the variety 55 or the name section, the load function is not available to us. You need to touch the bin 1 or bin up to bin 12 box. Once that load button turns red, that indicates that it's active. We'll touch load. The system asks us if we are sure we want to write this data to the order. We touch OK. Once the box goes away, we can touch close to go back to our order entry screen. You will now see that the seed ID information is populated with variety 55. That means we will be pulling seed out of our seed source 1 or bin 1 that is named variety 55. The final parameter we need to set up to run our order is the seed amount. We do that by touching on the amount box. Numeric entry button comes up. I'm going to set this order to run 100 units. As you recall from when we set up our auto batch parameters, we set it to select or to define orders by seed count units. So I'm going to run 100 units that are 140 seeds, that are 140,000 seeds each. The system will automatically calculate the pounds that are required for that order. One last point before we navigate away from the screen and return to our home screen. The third section of your order entry screen has several notes fields. 2 of them have quick load functions. 2 of those note fields as well have fields that we can type information into by touching and manually entering text. They also have fields that you can indicate what the temperature and the wind is on the day that you're delivering that order, if that's important to your customer or important to what you're doing. I'm going to show you how the quick load function works. Once again, we can touch the quick load function by one of the top two note fields, and a similar quick load screen will pop up. You see I've already pre-entered a note that says thank you for your business in the first field. I'm going to select that. Once again, our load button is now activated. I touch load. The system asks if I want to write this data to the order. I say yes and hit close. And anything in these first two note fields will be printed on your ticket, on your scale ticket once the order is complete. At this point, I've set up all the information required for this auto batch order. I'm ready to hit return to home. Once I hit return to home, it takes me back to my home screen. A couple points about the home screen. We have an information bar up at the top of your system. Shows the auto batch run status and the auto treat run status. For an auto batch system, the auto treat run status will always say system idle. However, you will see different information pop up as we begin to run this order on the auto batch run status screen. One of the first things you want to make sure you do in your auto batch system is if auto treat is enabled with a green button, we need to make sure that that is disabled since this is not an auto treat system. You want to touch the global auto button. This global auto button is going to go through your entire system and automatically set each of the devices to auto. We're ready to start the run. We do so by pressing Master Start. When we press Master Start, you'll see the auto batch run status change to running, and it says that we're in the seed mode check point of the sequence. It indicates it's waiting for the operator to enable a bin. You'll see over here on our bin 1, which is our Variety 55 bin, that's the only bin that has the enable button showing on the bin. If we had two Variety 55 bins, we would have two buttons shown here, and we could select either bin 1 or bin 2 or whatever bin it may be to run seed out of. At this point, if we touch enable, then you will see conveyor start to turn on when we go to the bin screen. This is a quick check for the operator to make sure that he or she does in fact want to deliver seed from the bin that he's expecting to. This would be a check at this point for the operator to check and see if they've actually selected the right seed. If you've typed the name wrong in your seed ID field on your order screen, there would be no bins even available for you to run out of. At this point, I'm going to hit enable. Once I've hit enable, you see that screen turn green, and you see the system running and fill by weight. As you note, we still have 2,500 pounds on the scale from our auto set procedure. This particular order is going to target 5,000 pounds. As you see on the target scale screen, I'm going to navigate to the bin 1 through 4 screen, and you will see that the conveyors are running and the knife gate's open. The bin is enabled. I can enable the bin from this screen as well. But at this point, the scale begins to fill. We'll go back to the home screen, and you see that the scale has filled by weight to 5,000 pounds. You also see a conveyor cleanout time box pop up on the lower part of that section of the screen. The conveyor cleanout time is set for 25 seconds, and you see the timer incrementing up to that 25-second time. We'll navigate to our scale screen, and we can see that our scale has reached 5,000 pounds. The system is ready to discharge all. However, the knife gauge or the air gate underneath the treater is closed. We'll navigate to our loadout screen, and you'll see that we already have the drum running. We've gone and manually turned on our treater, and we're ready to treat seed. But the system is waiting for us to start the loadout conveyor. As you see, that loadout conveyor is not on at this time. Once we start the loadout conveyor, you'll see the scale conveyor turn on. We can go back to the treater or the scale screen and see that the knife gate is open. And this is a check for you as an operator to allow you to make sure that there is something underneath the loadout conveyor to receive your seed, whether it be a box or a tender, whatever the case may be. We'll go ahead and start that conveyor next. Another mode that we can run our system in is to enable our auto discharge. If we had enable auto discharge on, the conveyor would already be running and discharging seed through the treater. However, we've disabled that function in this case because we want, as an operator, to come over and manually start that conveyor. I'll touch the start button. You see the conveyor turn on, and you see the conveyor or the device feeding the treater turn on. We'll go back to the scale screen. You see the knife gate underneath the scale is open, ready to discharge seed, and we'll begin simulating the discharge of seed by reducing the amount of scale weight on our scale. This will continue until the entire scale has discharged its entire amount and reached 0. Once that has happened, the system will go into its clean out. In effect, since we have auto discharge off, we will need to actually physically come in and stop our discharge conveyor once all seed has been discharged through the treater and into the scale, or into whatever we're receiving the seed into from our loadout device. I'm going to navigate back to our home screen. We again see our scale status has reached a 0 amount. This indicates that all the seed has been discharged from the scale. See that the scale is now set at idle. We'll go to our loadout screen, and we can stop our loadout conveyor. Once we press stop, our loadout conveyor turns off. We'll go back to our home screen. At this point, we can see up in our status bar box that our auto batch run status indicates the auto batch order is complete and we're ready to print our ticket. The last step in the process of running an order is printing the ticket. That's done by pressing the master print button. The system will not allow the next order to be run until the ticket has been printed for the previous run. Pressing master print is going to do two things. First, it's going to physically print the ticket from your supplied ticket printer that's hooked up to your system. This ticket is what needs to be given to your customer as a record of what he has ordered and purchased and picked up. The other thing that the master print function does is write the completed order information to your database if you have a KSI auto data system attached to your auto batch system. It also will write the data to the USB data drive that has been supplied with your system, assuming that you have that functionality enabled from the setup menu. I'm going to go ahead and touch master print. And once the print function begins, the ticket will print and we'll have a print pop-up button come up that asks the operator if the ticket printed okay. If the print ticket did not print okay, we can simply press no, and the ticket will the system will allow you to hit master print and print the ticket again. If there's a problem with the first ticket print, you can reprint the ticket, or if you want multiple copies of the ticket, that's the method whereby to achieve that. Once your ticket is printed okay, we can touch yes, and you'll see the enable button go back to red on bin 1. You'll see the master start button change from master start running to being able to select master start again. At this point, we're done with our order and we're ready to start the second order. That can be done again by going to the order entry screen, going back to the last two steps we just described, which were setting up an order and running an order. Or if the same amount of seed needs to be run again for the same customer, you would be able to simply hit master start and run the identical order